Welcome to the Forms and Survey Building Tools. Today I'll be walking you through this. I'm Lance Campbell. Before we get started on the Form and Survey Builder, at the bottom of every Webtools screen is a Contact Us button. This button will bring up a web form, and if you fill it out and submit it, it will go to all the members of the team. It's the fastest way to reach all of us. The Forms and Survey tool can be reached in either the center here, Forms or Survey, and it can be reached up here under Forms or under More for Surveys. They all take you to the same location. Also, if you need assistance, on every screen you will find a video button. It'll be up here in the top. This video button, when you click on it, will take you to this video tutorial. And it won't just take you to the video tutorial, but it will jump you to the specific spot associated with the screen you're on. So if you have a question about text questions and how to configure them, click the video button. If you have a question about skins in the form builder, you can click the video button and it'll take you right to that section in the video. It's a nice resource to have. All right. Well, before we get too much into it, it really helps to talk about what's the difference between forms and surveys. So the key thing to remember is surveys are 100% anonymous. We don't keep any information on who filled out a survey. Just like paper surveys, they're meant to be anonymous. You're just collecting information that's private and confidential. Forms, on the other hand, are designed to collect information and are associated with people, like a registration form as an example, or you're applying for something. So forms are designed to be tracked. And there's different security options, which we'll talk about. We do have a public anonymous form option, but it's really intended to be tracked. And if you choose to use authentication, whether it's a verified form or one that has security options, then that will also provide the net ID or the email address of the person who fills it out. But we'll get into that later. On this screen, my forms screen, you'll notice that there are a list of all the forms that I have access to. It has what mode they're in. So the modes might be draft, completed, live, or waiting to run. You'll also notice the last time it was accessed and the ID of the form. When you're filling out a Contact Us form, we really need to know the ID, and IDs can almost always be found on the My Forms screen. The other thing I'll point out here is the View by Folder button. Normally, this when you're viewing it not by folder, you're getting a list of all the forms just alphabetically. If I click View by Folder, I can create folders through my menu options up here, and the default is your root folder. But you can create new folders and then be able to organize them into collections. Just like on a file system. So for instance, I might click on these and go to Move, and that will give me the option of what folder to put it in, and then it will show up under that folder. Also, you'll notice roles up here. Roles is a quick way to see who has permissions to a particular form. I can also copy a form here, or I could quickly just view it. And that'll open up a link to be able to see the form via the browser. On the Search tab, this is where we come in to find a form or a survey based on a name. And we may not even have access to it. Let's do an example. We're going to look for the string example in the name of the forms. And so this returned quite a few forms. You'll notice the names on the left-hand side, what campus it's associated with, and you'll also notice the ID. I'm going to go ahead and click on this form and press the Roles button. This shows me who is the administrator for the form. So if I needed access to this form, I know I'd contact Lance Campbell. Also, as a quick note, let's say you're trying to get access to a form, but everyone has left. The administrators are no longer with the University of Illinois. What do I do? Well, once you've verified that no one is here anymore, then you can take the ID, highlight it, copy it with Control-C, and use the Contact Us form at the bottom of all the Webtools screens, and contact us and ask us to give you permissions to the form. Do keep in mind, we won't give you access to any form or survey or any tool for that matter if people are still employed at the University of Illinois that have permissions. But if no one has access, we will work with you. There's also a View button, so I could press this and view that form. And in this case, this is in a draft mode, and this is how the form looks. And those are the features of the Search tab. The Department tab and the Unit tab are identical. These list all the forms that are available within your department or unit. And a unit could be an administrative unit or a college. And these forms are owned by other people, not by you. So I won't see any forms that would have been on my Forms screen in here. I can see forms that are owned by other people. And again, I can check the form and press the Roles button to see who has ownership to that form. I can also view the form. So if I clicked here and press View, I could look at that form. The Unit tab is identical. And again, if you need access to something, simply highlight the ID, use the Contact Us form at the bottom of any Webtools page to request access. But we won't give you access if an administrator of the form is still on campus. The Deleted tab is where your forms or surveys go when you delete them. And they can be restored from here. All you need to do is check the box, press Restore, and it will now be found under My Forms. This will only list items that you've deleted or are an admin of, and they'll show up out here. It gives you the opportunity to restore them at any point. However, they don't stay here forever. Within 1 year, they will be hard deleted. So most things in Webtools are soft deleted for a year and later hard deleted after 1 year. When something's deleted, it cannot be accessed. So if it's showing up here, those forms cannot be viewed by the general public. Now it's time to create our form. We'll go up here to the Create button. On the Create a New Form screen, we have a couple options. We can create it as whoever we are. The second option we have is Group. And when we click on Group, it gives us a pull down. And these are all the security groups I have access to. Security groups are created up here in the Groups tool. And you can create a manually managed admin groups list, or you can create a group that points to an AD group. I'm just going to pick something at random here. Let's see what we have. Web Services Admins. Now, if I create this, it's going to assign permissions, admin permissions, to anyone in this list. But something else happens. No matter which option I choose, the next time I come in to press create, it's going to remember what the last selection was. So by default, it's user ID. But if I choose Web Services Admins, the next time I create a form, it's going to remember that and populate it and select that group by default. Down here, you're going to notice grant foundation access to this form. If you check this, the foundation team at the foundation will have access to your form. So they might be able to help you with skins and other types of things. And all we need to do is press create. The General tab. So we have at the top our form name. This will appear at the top of a form when someone goes to fill it out. We're going to skip over the form mode and starting and stopping forms, and we're going to come down here to domain. In most cases, this is going to just be on forms.illinois.edu, but if you happen to be UIllinois or UIF, we have some other domain names that you can run your form on. Below that is your form URL, and you can just copy your form URL. I don't recommend sharing this URL. Instead, I recommend going up to More and choosing the Short URL tool. Create a smaller, more readable short URL to represent your form, and paste this URL into the short URL. So for instance, I might put go.illinois.edu/contact us, and then the long URL would be this form URL. Below this, we have project data. This is just some miscellaneous information about your form. So if you're looking for the ID, it can be found here. If you want to grant foundation access to edit this form, you can click here. This was done during the create process, but you can also check it or uncheck it here. And this just tells us what campus, unit, and department is associated with it. Now, let's go back up and look at form mode. So the only way you can edit a form is if it's in draft mode. To start a form, I can simply click Start Form. And now my form's live. People can fill it out. It's ready to go. Let's say I need to end my form. I can just press End Form. Now, what happens during this process, though? So if I need to edit it, it did end, but it's still not editable. So if people go to the URL, they're going to see that the form has ended. So to edit it, I still need to click the Edit Form button, and now I can edit it. Now this is very important because let's say my form is live, and I realize I need to rephrase a question. What do I do? So in this case, I view my form, I think about which question is it, what do I want it to say, and then I simply end the form, put it in edit mode, quickly jump to the questions tab, edit my form, and then jump back here and press start. And you can see you can restart a form very quickly. The problem is when you stop and start a form, a new set of results is spun up, because keep in mind, you could have rephrased the questions from a positive to a negative. You could have added new questions. So we can't leave the answers associated, the original submissions associated with the current structure. So if I had, say, 10 people had filled out this form and I stop it and restart it, I need those 10 submissions to be associated with those original questions. And the new submissions will be associated with this one. And if we go to the Reports tab, we can see that it spins off. Every time a form starts and stops, it creates a new set of submissions. Form submissions. So we need to keep that in mind as we start and stop. So if you're running a form, this means you might have to run multiple reports if you stopped and started it several times. Another thing to note here is, I'm going to put it in draft mode. You can also schedule a form. I can click here on schedule. I can pick a future start date. Let's say I want to start it on the 9th. And I could pick an end date. Let's say the end of the month. And now I can activate it. Now, what's it mean to activate it? It goes in a waiting state. So if somebody tries to fill out this form right now, they're going to get a message that says this form is not yet available to fill out. Now, let's say I need to start it. Well, then I can click the Start Form button, and that'll start it immediately. Okay? And I can choose to end the form early if I wished by pressing the End Form button. So I don't have to wait until then. Let's say I needed to end it early. I can end it early. Okay? So there's a lot of flexibility here. But remember, you can only edit when it's in a draft mode. Each time you cycle through, you go from draft to live, then you're spinning off those submissions that have been made and submitted, and they go into their own result set. So you'll just have to run multiple reports. On the Appearance Skins tab, this is where you select the skin you would like to use. Over on the left are the application skins that are available to you. Some of these might be a unit skin or a department skin or a campus skin. In this case, this is the web services default skin. And it'll give you a preview on the right-hand side. You can also go to a view gallery mode where you can see a gallery perspective of all the different skins. One thing I'll note is the Contact Skin Admins button. If you want to reach out because you find that a skin is not accurate, maybe it's out of date, you can click this Contact Skin Admin button, and it'll take you to a user role screen that will allow you to decide who you want to contact that's responsible for the skin. There are also times where you just need access to a skin. In that case, you can come down here to the email address button. You can type in somebody's email address at illinois.edu and hit the Assign Access button. This will grant them the ability to use that particular skin. So if you have somebody from a department helping you out and they need to be able to use the skin, you can select it up here, put in their email address, and hit Assign Access. Now they'll be able to use these particular skin in their form. The Appearance Screens form is a place where you can come into to modify the generic messages that people see, landing pages, I should say, when certain events occur. So for instance, if the maximum number of submissions has been reached on a survey or form, you can click here and then edit the message that the people will see. I might want to edit the thank you screen, and so I could customize this for my user. My form has ended. Introductory and closing messages. Little different. This is the message that appears at the top of every form and survey page. On the Files tab, this is where we can add additional files. These files, and notice the instructions here, provide you with URLs so that you can add these images or other files for reference to your headers or instructions using the text editor, the TinyMCE text editor. So let's look at adding a file. So I click Add a File. let's go ahead and choose a file. I'm going to grab a picture of a bunny. Alt text for accessibility. I'll type in bunny. And down here in the caption, maybe I put my bunny. And I'm going to hit upload. Oh, yes, it's been uploaded. So we're going to go ahead and hit back. Now, here's my URL to my bunny, my picture of my bunny. And I can put this now as a link or as an image. I can use the image inside either a header or instructions to add a reference to the bunny. I might have a Word document or a PDF, and then I could put a hyperlink in my instructions that would link to this. Okay, so that's what Files and Images Files tab is used for. The Email tab is where we can control who gets an emailed copy of your form or survey. We can send a copy to the user filling out the form or survey. We can also send it to other recipients. So if I were to turn these off, you'll see that nobody's going to get a copy of that. Now, if you're doing a survey for voting or things like that, you definitely do not want emailing on. If you're dealing with stuff that's fairly confidential, again, you don't want email on. And confidential, I mean stuff that you would never want somebody to see in their inbox for whatever reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and turn these on. And most people, in most cases, don't have extremely confidential information. So they turn these features on. And depending on your access level, if it's restricted, obviously we're going to have your email address, or verified, we're going to have your email address when you log in so that we can send you the email. If the form is anonymous and you turn these features on, there will be a link at the bottom of the form where you can type in your email address to get a copy. But if you don't provide it or put in the wrong address, you will not get a copy of it. Down here under email recipients, I can put in an email address and hit add. And now I'm going to get a copy of that form or survey when it's filled out. Down here a little bit further, this is an area where I can put in a intro message. So if I wanted to say, please visit the Illinois website, I could put this HTML in, and I could also put in an email closing if I wanted. A little bit further, we see some other options. We can send the email in an HTML format. If we uncheck this, it's going to be sent as text. So in that case, you would not want to include HTML tags. Send IP in email. This is in case you want to know the IP address of the person that submitted the form. Send referring URL in email. So this is where it came from. What site referenced the form initially? So if I was referencing it from my homepage, it would include that in the email. Send request info in email, browser, OS, or version info. So this request info. So this is information about the initial request that came in. So by turning this on, I can discover what was the person's browser and what OS and etc. Include form headers in email. So when you're building your form, one of the options is headers, question headers. And a lot of times people put headers at the top of sections of a form. And these sections, usually there'll be page breaks between sections. Do you want to include that in the emailed response? You can say yes or no, but it will come as just a single email, of course. There's no page breaks in there, but this at least allows you to see where the headers are, or you can exclude them. Exclude questions that were not answered. So that's another option if you just want to see the information that the person filled out. Include questions that were jumped or skipped. So if you use the skip to or jump to logic, you can include the questions that the person never filled out. So if they made a choice on the first page and that resulted in them skipping questions 3 and 4, you can just show, by default, it would not show those. But if you wanted, you could check this and it would include them. They'd just be blank. We're now on the Submissions Settings tab. There's a lot going on here, so we'll just walk through it. Submit only once. This limits someone to only being able to fill out a survey or form once. This is exceptionally important when you're doing voting. But this feature can only be enabled if the person filling out the form, if the form has on the Access tab up here, it's limited to verified or restricted. Verified or restricted. So if it's anonymous, we don't know who the person is that's filling it out, so we can't restrict them. Save and finish later. Again, you can't do this with anonymous forms, but you can if you've enabled verified, where it verifies who you are, or it's restricted. So again, we've verified who you are. You can do save and finish later. I strongly suggest not using this feature unless it's absolutely necessary. A lot of people get confused and they lose the email that's sent to them on how to fill out the form or survey later. Delete their submissions. This is an option you can enable, and we'll send the person an email giving them a link so that they can delete their form later. Again, I would only use this if maybe somebody's registering for a class or something, or a seminar, so that they can remove themselves. And this will also impact the count. So if you limited it to 30 people can fill out the form, this will allow it to free up a space. So when you're limited in the number of people that can submit a form, this is a good option. There's also an option here for editing your submission. So basically it unsubmits you. It allows you to modify your submission and re-add you. If you've limited the number of seats available, a person could find themselves unable to resubmit the form because someone snuck in while they were in the edit process and actually filled out a form, if there was a limit on how many could fill out a form or survey. And in order to edit it, we send you a link after you've submitted the form so that you'll know the link in order to edit it later. Total submissions allowed. So you can have unlimited or maximum. You can put a number in, let's say it's 30, and I could save this. And now 30 seats are available. This is how many people have already filled out your form or survey. And in this case, there's 2. Let's say I had ran this form in the past and I forgot to clear those submissions out from the last time I ran that. I can press reset, and this will remove the past submissions that were made to this form. And so it starts it out from scratch. This is a common problem. Somebody will restart a form that's a registration and give it a new name and intend for it to be used for a new presentation that's happening, but they'll forget that people have already filled this out. And so you need to press the reset. And down here we have data retention. This is how long the submissions will be left in the system. And for storage purposes, we recommend that you set this. And by default, it's 5 years, but you can keep forms and surveys up to 10 years. Forms can be set up to allow for saving a submission you're filling out and then coming back later and complete the submission process. In order to work with that, the first thing you have to do is you go to Submissions Settings. On the Submissions Settings screen, you'll notice a feature called Save and Finish Later. That will activate the ability for users to save the form they're working on before submitting it. An email will be sent to the user with a link so that they can finish filling it out later. So I'm going to go to the Submissions Save tab for a second because sometimes users lose that URL, that email that was sent to them. So what do you do in that case? If you notice at the bottom of the Submissions Saved screen, here's an example. I went ahead and started to fill out this form and then saved my results. And you'll notice this URL. This URL, if this person had lost that and couldn't remember how to finish filling out their form, I could send them this link, and it gives me the time that the person last saved their data. So I can take this URL, email it to them, and then they can go in and finish filling out their form. Now, there's also a caveat here. When you stop a form in order to edit the results, so let's say I've started a form, people have saved some submissions, so we have Lance here, has saved a submission, but I realize I have a typo and I need to stop the form, edit it, and then restart it. Whenever you stop a form and put it in draft mode, anybody that submitted something but hasn't saved it, that information will be deleted. That's because we need the submissions that have been started to match the form. We don't want them out of sync. You might add an additional question, you might delete one, you might rephrase it. So it's important that we maintain that structure. So when you edit a form that's live, you're going to lose those saved form submissions. Or you might be in a situation where the form's about to come to an end and you come into this screen and you can see all the people that are currently editing their forms. Now, if I would finish filling this out, my entry down here would disappear. So we have people that are possibly they've saved their forms. They haven't finished them yet. We don't know if they're going to, and we either need to edit the form or it's about to come to an end. So coming up here to the email message, I can type a message to all the users. So I could maybe say, an editing issue needs to be made to this form. It will be edited tomorrow on Wednesday at 8 a.m. You're receiving this email because you have saved your form. Please complete it. Otherwise, you won't be able to complete it and we'll have to start the form over. So that's an example of a message you might send. Or you might send a message that's the form will end in 2 days on Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. We've noticed you haven't completed your submission. Please take this opportunity to finish your form before the close date at blah, blah, blah. So this is just a way to communicate with those users, but it's also a way to communicate the URL they need to finish filling out their form in case they lost the email that was sent to them during that process. On the Submissions Delete screen, this is where we can delete a submission. So let's say people have been registering for a a presentation, and somebody, they've reserved a spot, maybe there's only 30 seats available, and they're not able to make it. And they contact you directly rather than using the delete link or the delete option that's on the settings screen, delete their submissions. And maybe they lost the URL that was sent to them to be able to delete, or maybe you didn't even activate that feature. And they notify you that I'm not going to be able to attend the event. So what do? On the submissions delete screen, you will see all the people that have filled out their submissions. And you can sort this by user ID, name, or date. And this allows you to delete their submission. So you can simply slide over, press the delete button, and their submission will be deleted. Now we're going to discover later on the Reports tab that every time you stop and start a form, maybe it's to edit it, what happens is there's a different set of result submissions that gets created on the Reports screen because you could have altered the structure of the form. So on the delete screen here, this covers all submission groups. So let's say you started a form, 5 people filled it out, but then you stop it and restart it. A couple more people fill it out. You stop it and start it. Maybe some more people have filled it out. And Bob from the first group needs to be deleted. You'll see all the people that have filled out all those forms will be listed here. And that way you can delete people from a prior submission as well. There are times when you need to programmatically export data from a form. So when a form is live, you can go to the Submissions Data Export tab. You can allow data exporting. When you turn it on, you do have the option of including additional user information for illinois.edu submissions. But the key here I want to note is restrict by key. And when you turn this on, it's going to give you the option of to regenerate a key if you need to. The key is down here. This is your key. And so the URL to extract information is in this format. And this is that security key. And if you hit regenerate, it'll generate a new key. You can copy this, and then programmatically, this has your form ID, the last processed ID, which the first time you're going through is 0, and then your security key. Once you've processed, it will only return up to 10 rows. There's an 11th row, which is your header. And this is in a CSV file format. And when you get your data, you'll have a processed ID on each of your result submissions. Then when you call this URL again, you pass the last processed ID that you processed. And so your program will want to store the last processed ID. That way, you know where to continue reading from. If you get no results, you know there wasn't any new result submissions. And down here is the URL to pull down files that have been uploaded into your form or survey. And so this will allow you to pull down the specific file. On the Submissions Hidden Fields tab, we have the ability to add hidden fields. Hidden fields, think of them just like questions. So in order to add them, the form has to be in an edit mode. And it'll tell you if you're live or it's not in an edit mode that you need to go into an edit mode. So these are fields that you would pass in the initial URL. So you'd pass those as parameters when the person clicks on the link to go to the form builder. So you would add to it, and there's a detailed description of how to use that feature on this posting. But it basically, you could pass in, let's say, department. And the default value, maybe I leave it blank and I hit add field. And so that's now been added. I could add in college and add that in as well. And these are parameters that are passed in the URL, the initial URL. And that information then gets collected by the system, and it'll appear in any of the reports or data exports. Submissions deleted by user. So when somebody is filling out a form, one of the options under settings is delete their submissions. So this will allow a user to delete their submission. When would you use this? This would be used in, let's say, a situation where you have registration for using a room, and we can only have 30 people in there. So if somebody realizes, oh, I can't use, I'm not going to be able to attend, when they fill out that submission initially, they'll get a separate email that will be to allow them to delete themselves. And if they click that link, it'll remove their submission and open that seat up. On the deleted by user screen, you'll see every time a person removes themselves, you'll see who removed them and what time it happened. And this is more for an audit trail, because occasionally people receive those emails and they don't read it, and then they just click the link and they delete themselves. And later you get a phone call that says, hey, I registered for this event. Why are you saying I can't attend? Well, it's because they deleted themselves, and you can go to the deleted by user screen here to see and confirm that they clicked the link they really shouldn't have clicked. We are now on to reporting. So we've ran our form. It's been out there for a while. People have been submitting stuff, and we go to the reports tab. You'll notice active and deleted. Active are all of the sets of submissions that are in the system. Now, what's a submission set? So you notice this one's live. There will only be one live set. And then there's the completed list. So basically, every time you start and stop a survey or form, it spins off another set. So if I stop this form right now and put it in edit mode, we're going to see that this is completed. And when we start it, there'll be a new live session. I can run reports on any one of these, and you'll notice when it stopped and when it started. It will tell me how many submissions are in each set, and I can run a report on that set. I can also delete this session and its reports, so the reports associated with it will be deleted at the same time. When they're deleted, they show up under the deleted. So this one, I had just stopped and started the submissions, the form. Nobody had submitted at that time. So I'm going to go ahead and press delete on this. I press OK. And now if I go to deleted, I'll see that entry. I can restore it and the reports that went with it. But this is very important. After 1 year, this will be permanently deleted. So let's go back to active. So I have 4 submissions here. I can now run a report. So I'll click run a report. I can give the report a name. I can pick the type of report I want. So maybe I just want a summary, full responses. I can even run an Excel and generate an Excel report. Let's just go ahead and do a summary. I can set my start range and end range. So if I want to narrow it down or expand it out more, I can choose what questions I want to show up in the report. And then I can press generate report. So let's go ahead and do that. It now takes me back here. It says there are 1 reports queued, which we have 1 queued. You'll notice these arrows. This means it's busy, it's working, but I can press refresh. And now you can see it's done. So I can click here to download that report as a PDF, and it'll go wherever my downloads for my browser go. I can also delete this report at any point in time that I want. That's basically it. Just remember, if you stop and start your form, it's going to create a new set. So if you go to run a report, you're going to go, well, wait a minute. There was 20 people, but I'm only seeing 2. Well, that's because you stopped and started it, and those other people are down at a completed set. And this is so that if you edit a form or survey, you might change the questions. You might relabel them. You might add or remove questions. So we can't just keep adding to the same one when you edit. So this way, you have them grouped up properly. But don't forget, if somebody has filled out their form and survey and saved it but has not completed it, they'll lose their information. But under submissions, you can find an option in there to send a message to alert people before you stop that survey. Access. This tab allows us to decide who can have access to my form or survey. Surveys generally are anonymous. Forms, however, you usually want to collect who was the person that filled out my form or survey. In that case, you usually want for forms verified and restricted. Verified allows the person to either go through Shibboleth, so you use your normal university account, or you can use an email address, and then it sends you an email with a link in it, and when you click the link, you can fill out the form or survey. That's so we can identify the actual person for you. Restricted is the same as verified, except now we're also restricting it based on an audience. So maybe people in a group or etc. So let's go ahead and look at restricted. In restricted, I can choose Urbana's staff or students. I can add them both. So I could add this group, and I could go down here and add that group. And so now anybody that's an Urbana staff or student would have access. Let's say I just want to give access to students. Okay, so anybody that's a student, undergrad and grad, can fill out this form. But let's say I have a security group. I'll just call it external security. Maybe this group has some email addresses for people off campus. So I've added it. So now anyone that's in that security group that's created under groups up here will have access. So anybody that's a member of my security group, also anybody that's a graduate or an undergraduate. Now, if we look a little bit further, by default, when you come into a form or survey, it allows anybody from Chicago, Illinois, or Springfield based on your campus. So I don't really need this option if I'm going to leave that on. But maybe I don't want people in Chicago, and maybe I don't want people on the Springfield campus. So right now, I have external users. This could be technically people on campus, but by the labeling of the group, you're implying that maybe this is a Yahoo addresses or Gmail or Hotmail, and we have people on campus. I could even narrow it down if I didn't want the whole campus. I could remove Illinois, and I could come down here and say anyone in the office of the chancellor, and I could say anyone in the college of education. And now both these groups, if you happen to fall in them, you'll have access. Now, how does somebody fall into those colleges or units? How are those defined? There are a lot of staff and faculty that report to multiple departments and colleges. The only thing we use to determine this is your home department code. So if you have one faculty who their home department is not in the college education, but really in engineering, at this point, they wouldn't have access. So I would either need to create a security group up here in the Groups tool and then add them, or I could add the College of Engineering, Granger. Down here, you can even go so far as to add a department. I could add Web Services. So there's a lot of flexibility, but again, this is based on your home department code. Your home department code. The Privileges tab is strictly for who can be an administrator on this form. And so right now, it's just me, Lance. However, I could give some people result viewers access. This would give the person the ability to run reports. That's all. They wouldn't be able to stop or start the form. They couldn't manipulate questions. All they can do is run reports. And that's great if, let's say, I'm managing a form, I've set it up, I make sure it starts and stops properly, and there's another outside person in an entirely different unit that needs to run reports periodically. Then I could add them up here. And on the Privileges tab, all privileges need to go to your netid at whatever your campus is .edu. No Illinois or UIF email addresses. So everything's netid at your campus.edu. There's also security groups you can add. So I could click here and add any number of security groups. I could add, here's a security group I'm an admin on. That's LAS Toolbox Admins. And I could click on that, and then those people in that group will have access. Now, in that group, what's that really mean? That means in the security group that was set up in the Groups tool, they're members of the group, not admins, but members of the group. And that's very important to remember. We're now on the Questions tab. It's time to build questions and structure the core content of our form. Let's talk briefly about some best practices. So obviously this is a screen we're going to build our form on, and we need to make sure the form is in draft mode. You can't edit or add questions unless it's in draft mode. So when we go to the General tab, you can see it's in the mode is draft. So I can start my form, I can end my form, and it's in an ended mode, and then I can put it in edit mode. Now it's in draft mode. And this is important because you just can't edit a live form. And why? Because the questions and the results are all tied together. If you're editing the form and restructuring it as it's live, I'm not going to know how to match stuff up. So we need to be kind of in a locked format. So every time you stop and start a live form, it's going to create a new set of results. And it spins those off, and you'll see those on the Reports tab. We create a separate results set, and we tell you when you started it and when you stopped it. And when you start up a new one, we'll say it's live. So at this point, we're in a draft mode. So when we come back to our questions, we can now edit or add questions or delete questions. When working with a form, do not add page breaks between questions until you're completely done and ready to start your form. Why? When you press View and you're testing out your form, if I press View right now, I want to see all of my questions on one screen. I don't want to keep having to page and page to next and next to the next page to get maybe to the 5th page in order to see how a question's layout looks. I want everything to be right in front of me. And the best way to do that is to keep the page breaks out until you're ready to edit your form. So you can delete page breaks here, and this will delete all your page breaks. You can also insert page breaks between each and every question. Then I could go in and let's say I don't want one there and I don't want one there. But before it's live, just delete them all. Don't worry about them. Keep everything together. It also speeds up grammar checking, spell checking, that sort of thing. Validations. When I press View on a form, you'll notice at the top it says Preview Mode. And here, validation rules are off by default when you're testing a form. The red part will not show up once it's live. Don't worry about testing the validation rules on different questions until you're really done with it. When you're done, now turn them on and check and see if everything has the proper validation. Is the input field a number? Is it validating as a number or as a zip code, or as maybe it has a character limit? So do that at the very end before doing page breaks. But you want it all on one screen so you can very quickly tell where your validation errors are at. You don't want to be dealing with paging through multiple pages of a form, because if something's on the 6th page and you find a problem with it, you edit your form. Now you got to work all the way back to that 6th page. So just wait until all the validation's been checked before adding page breaks. The last thing I'm going to mention is go to and submit. Down here, there is a video you can watch, and this video will cover go to and submit and jump to logic, and it goes into great detail on it, but that's outside the scope of a normal video. At the end of the video it will tell you how to enable the go to and submit option. But until you watch the whole video, you should not be using those features. Okay, we're on the questions tab. We're ready to add a question. There's a couple ways to add questions. The first way and simplest way is add questions. There's a pull down here. And in the pull down, I can pick any question I'd like to add. When I click it, it's going to add it below the question I'm on. So I'm on this row of question 1, would you recommend this form builder to others? If I add a text, it's going to insert it between question 1 and question 2. So let's go ahead and just do that. And it took me to a new screen. I'm editing my question. So new text question. We're going to save it and hit back. And you can see it stuck it in the middle. And to delete it, I can press the delete button, the trash can. Now, there's another way to add questions. I can drag them. So I'm going to grab this text question, hold down on my mouse, bring it over top. I'm over top of the first row. Guess where it puts it? Directly underneath it, between question 1 and question 2. Now, how do I get it into question 1? Well, I can move this question up 1, or using the arrows, I could have moved question 1 down. There's also these 4 dots, 2 columns of 4 dots. I can use that and drag my row down. But notice when I drag it from the top position onto the second one, nothing happens. Why? Well, it always drops it below. So I need to drag this up. So you really want to, it's going to put it above the question you're dragging it onto. So if I put this on top of it, it puts it above it, which is in its same place. So you really need to kind of drag it down. So if I want this above, please enter a project ID, and between new text questions, I would simply put this on top of please, and it's going to stick it between them. You can play around with it. It's not like you're going to break it if you don't remember that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that question. Now, we've just dragged and dropped. We've looked at moving up and down. These are the types of questions. And this is my question area over here, the questions. I can also check them if I want to delete multiple. So that's basically kind of moving stuff around on the questions screen. Now we're ready to add some different types of questions. So the first one we're going to look at is text. Text questions can be added a couple different ways. Obviously, we've already covered adding questions, so you can use your pull down or drag over. This symbol here that looks like sentences of text is for short answers. Let's go ahead and view this form. It has a series of examples, questions. And these first two questions, question one, what is your first and last name, is an input box. This would be what we call a short answer text. And then we have, please tell me about yourself. This one's a paragraph, and you can even grab this and stretch it out. And it's designed for multi-lines of text. Okay, let's go ahead and go back here. Let's go ahead and edit this one. I could just as easily drag over text. And when we get there, we see that we can have short answer or long answer. This one's a short answer. I put in my question, a placeholder. So what is a placeholder? So a placeholder is some text that will appear on the screen in the input field. It is not a default answer, which you will find down here. I could put in a default answer, but instead, because a default answer, if I were to just, I could skip over the question and leave that value in there. But a placeholder is a grayed out area that just gives you some sample. So for instance, first and last name. Let's go ahead and press save on this and review the question. So you can see first and last name, but that's not the actual text. If I come back here and I cut this out and I go down here to default answer and press save, now let's compare the difference. It's actually putting in first and last name, okay? So I probably don't want first and last name as a default. I would want that as a placeholder. Going down a little bit further, you'll see you can add instructions. So instructions will appear above the question. Instructions for first and last name. And let's go ahead and just save this and take a peek again. Instruction for first and last name. So I could put as much text here as I want. Now, you'll notice this Images tab. If I added something on the Files tab, let's go back. Here's my files. If I would have uploaded an image or a PDF or something like that, an image in particular, if I come back here in the instructions, I could actually include that image. So I could show a picture of a rabbit or something. I could also create a hyperlink that would link to maybe a PDF or Word document that I had uploaded. Going a little bit further, we can see answer rules. So I can require this, and when I do that and press view, you'll notice there's an asterisk. This is required. We have the default answer again. And these are validation rules. So I could say I want it to be an email, a date, a university ID, CFOP, video, zip code, or URL. Okay. I can also set the length in terms of words or characters. I'm going to choose none there. Okay. And those are basically my key elements. Now there's also this web parameter, and I can give that a web parameter name. So if I wanted to pass in, say, a first and last name, and somehow some program I have knows what that is, I could give this field a name, a generic name. So I could say first and last. And if I save this, if I pass that as a parameter in the initial URL, it'll pre-populate it with whatever value I passed in. Okay, so that's basically it for short answer. Now let's look at long answer. So I can drag a text over here, or I can choose text, but I already have one set up. Please tell us about yourself. So when I come in here, you'll notice it's a text long answer. And we have, please tell me about yourself, is my question. I can add an instruction if I want, which will appear directly above the question. I can require this, and I can put in a default question. In most cases, that's not going to happen here, but you can do it. You'll also notice down here, there's links on your answer links, and you can set up words, a word count, or even a character count if you want. And let's go ahead and review what that looks like. So we have an input field that's really designed for multiple sentences. Now let's look at adding a radio button. Radio button, you can drag it over, or you can choose radio. I already have a radio button here selected. When you come in, I have it as an example. Would you recommend this form builder to others? I have an instruction down here. And I have my answer options. Answer options, to add one, I can choose maybe I could do X, Y, and Z. And I'm just holding down Shift and hitting Enter. And I can press Enter at this point, or I could separate them by commas or semicolon. And if I click Add and I scroll down, you'll see it's added those options to the list. I'm going to go ahead and delete them real quick. To move things around in my list, I can move them up by dragging. Or move them down. I also have arrow keys to make adjustments, and I can add a new answer option. Jump to we're not going to cover in this video. I can also edit the question, the answer option, and I can also copy it. Going down a little bit further, I can add an other option. I could do long or short answer, and I can turn this feature on or off. So let's go ahead and press save and view this. So here we are. Here's the question. There's the instruction. And if I choose other, I have this paragraph. Now, I could have went back here and changed this to use a short answer. And let's go ahead and press save and view it. And now we'll see that it's a short answer. I can only fill it in if I choose this option. Radio buttons, the number one thing to remember is that they are only one can be chosen. So when do you use a radio button? Radio buttons should be used when you have a limited number of choices, so maybe 5 or 6 or less, and only one of them can be selected. You also have at the bottom answer rules. You can require it to be answered, and you can choose a default, and those are the options I had above. Now we're going to look at the checkbox. You can drag the checkbox over, or you can pick checkbox from the pull down to add a new question. Let's go look at an example of a checkbox. Now a checkbox is a little bit different than a radio button or a pull down. A checkbox can have any number apply. It could be 0 or it could be all of them. So in this case, we have a question: how did you find out about the Web Services Toolbox? Choose all that apply. We have an instruction, and down here we have answer options. Let's go ahead and add a few. A, B, C. And I did the carriage returns by holding down Shift Enter. I'm going to hit Add, and down below we have all of our answer options. I'm going to go ahead and delete these that I just added. I can move them up and down with the dots, or I can use the arrows. And I can also edit them by hitting the pencil or copying. I also have an other option. You can turn it on or off. You can change the label of other, and it can be a short answer or a long answer. You can also turn on requires and a limit number, so I could limit it to a maximum of 5. Let's go ahead and press save here, and we'll view it and take a look at the checkboxes. How did you find out about the Web Services Toolbox? And here is the options. And I can check as many as I want. If I choose other, then I can enter input there. Okay. And that's really all there is to it. Again, you can do requires down at the bottom. Now we're going to look at Dropdown. Dropdown can be drug over, or you can pick it from the pull-down list. Drop-down questions, think of those just like radio buttons. Now, when do you use one over the other? So radio buttons are great if you have 5 or 6 items or less, and of course you can only pick one of them. A drop-down is when you have a lot of options, a lot more than 5 or 6, and that way you're not taking up so much screen space with the answer options. A perfect example is states. So let's go ahead and look at an example of a drop-down. So what is your favorite state? And you're going to notice here we have some options right here. And you can pick one of these and hit Add States. And we do this because that's a fairly common option. And so we have a different options for how they're going to appear. Or you can just type in your options just like you would with radio buttons or checkboxes. It then adds your list. You can move things up and down in the list. You can also use another option. And you can change the label of other. You can choose long or short answer, just like radio buttons. You can also require it. And let's say we know everybody's from Illinois. So as a default, I could choose Illinois, and I could set it as a required. And so let's go ahead and save this and view it. So as you can see, it just takes up a little bit of space, but yet we have all the states. And Illinois was chosen as the default because I set that as the default. We're now going to look at the ranking question types. Ranking is quite similar to pull down or radio or checkbox. For ranking, you're ranking a series of answer options with the highest number being the best result. Let's go ahead and take a look at rankings. So rankings are found over here. I have an example. What's your favorite Webtools application? So when we come in, I have some answer options: calendars, email plus, forms, and short URL. Like all of our question types, rankings at the top, you can put in a question, you have instructions, your answer options, and whether it's required. You can also specify how many of the rankings are required. So for instance, I might require 3 of the 4 to be answered. In this case, we won't worry about that. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. So if we go down to rankings, I would put in, as an example, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's say those are my rankings, the highest number being the best. And if I were to submit this, then I would calculate the totals for each person that filled out the form or survey. And so the highest number would tell me the thing that was ranked the most. Our next type of question is matrix. Now, matrix is where I have a series of questions, more than one, that all share the same answer options. Down here, I have an example of a matrix. One of the first things you're going to notice is questions 7, 8, and 9 all share the same answer options, and so they're grouped together. 10, 11, and 12 all share, they're a matrix as well, and all share the same answer options. So let's go ahead and look at an example of a matrix, and you can just drag it over or choose it from the drop-down. So at the top, you'll see a description. This is for display purposes. And then underneath, you can add as many questions as you want, and then edit those questions or move them up and down. You can also require specific questions to be answered if you wish. Also down here we have instructions. And a little bit further are our shared answer options. And in this case, all the questions are required. If I were to uncheck this, now you can see I can choose which question is required or not required. And I can choose the default answer option. And finally, I can choose, is this a checkbox or radio? Let's go ahead and save this and view it again. So if I come down here, you'll see questions 7, 8, and 9 are checkboxes. So I can check any number of these per row. And remember, number 10 was also a matrix. In this case, it used radio buttons, so only one in each row can be chosen. It seems much more complex than it is, but a matrix is a fairly simple question type when you've already used radio and checkboxes. Our final question type is file uploading. Down here you'll see, please upload a picture of your pet, and you'll see the image that matches over here. So this is an example of a file upload. Let's take a look. So in this case, I still have my question, so please upload a picture of your pet. I can add an instruction and if it's required. Now the catch with file uploading, you really only want one file uploaded per page. And the reason for this is if somebody's uploading 4 or 5 files, because I could add any number of file uploads. If they're trying to upload 4 or 5 files at the same time, this can cause some out-of-memory errors. So we really encourage you to put them on their own screens, their own pages. So in that case, I might add a page break before the question so that I'm kind of isolating the file upload, or at least at the very minimum, only have one file upload per page. So if I had multiple pets I wanted to upload, I would probably add a page break and then another file upload. This just makes it easier on the system. Keep in mind, any number of forms or surveys could be filled out at any given time, not just yours, but across the entire campus. So we want to keep those things in mind while we're using this shared resource. At this point, we've added our primary questions, but sometimes we want to break out sections. In particular, at the top of a new page. Let's say here we have a series of matrix questions. I probably want a page break at some point. So once my form has been tested, I would stick a page break in here. So as an example, I might insert a page break underneath here. And at the top of the page, before my first question, I might want to have a header. I just want to kind of segment my way into the next set of questions. So in this case, we can add a header. And so if I click on here, I can give it a label and a description if I want. And if I press View, I can see that header by going to the next page. Tell us about your job. And you might have types of segments of questions on a page, and you want to kind of do a break between them. You can also add headers. So this is an example of a header.